Hi, everybody. Welcome to the session. My name is Dune Desormo. I'm a program manager on the Microsoft Endpoint Manager team. And today, as part of Ignite, we're going to be doing a session on managing Windows updates from the cloud with Microsoft Endpoint Manager. And here with me today, I have Aria Carley. Aria, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Thanks, Dune. Hello, my name is Aria Carley, and I'm a program manager here at Microsoft, focusing on improving commercial management of Windows updates. Now back to Dune to get us started with the talk. Dune?
So when we talk about managing Windows software updates with Microsoft Endpoint Manager, there's a breadth of different options that you have for managing these updates. And different customers will have different environments with different requirements, and will leverage different parts of Endpoint Manager to achieve their business goals. These environments can range from environments that need to be fully on premises to environments that are born in the cloud and ready to leverage the full power of Microsoft Endpoint Manager in the cloud. And the majority of our customers will actually be somewhere in between. Either they've taken their on-premises infrastructure and attached Config Manager to Intune, and they are either using that tenant attached functionality, or they've gone and co-managed their devices to manage those devices both with Intune and with Configuration Manager. And then they're picking and choosing workloads in terms of which technology will be the source of truth for each of those workloads. Now, from a software updates perspective, customers who are completely on premises will be using Configuration Manager and Windows Server Update services, which works great. And that's the beginning of their journey in terms of maximizing the capabilities that Microsoft Endpoint Manager has available to them in the cloud. One of the big challenges that they'll have is managing endpoints that are, for example, on the internet. As we know, in the current situation where most people are working from home, that's particularly important. And so the first step for many of those customers will be deploying a cloud management gateway. And what the cloud management gateway will allow their endpoints to do is to acquire software updates policy even when those devices are on the internet. And another option that's available to them is to acquire content directly from Windows Update instead of having to deploy that content for their software updates via their own content distribution network. So that's a way to kind of get started, but going even further, customers can then connect Configuration Manager to Microsoft Endpoint Manager in the cloud, and they have the option to move the software updates workload so that they're then using the cloud management technology that we have available for software updates. And something to keep in mind as well is that we also have baselines available for software updates. And if you check out Sneha Deo's session on this subject, she'll go into more detail about the updates baseline, what's available in group policy, and what will be available in Intune as well from an updates baseline perspective. So that's another option. And so in this session, we'll be focusing on the ability to manage software updates using the web aspects of Microsoft Endpoint Manager. So the top box here, we'll be emphasizing the full capability of Microsoft Endpoint Manager in the cloud. And what we'll be doing is doing a whole bunch of nitty-gritty, right middle of the action style presentation here. We'll be showing you how to actually use this technology. We'll be talking about what's new, and we'll be talking about what's exciting in the world of configuring update management. And with that, I'm going to jump over to a demo of Microsoft Endpoint Manager. So this is the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center. It's the web portal where you'll be able to do everything that involves Microsoft Endpoint Manager in terms of your cloud management workloads. And when we talk about software updates, those policies will live in the devices node. So if I jump in here and have a look at the Windows platform, you'll see that I have two different options for configuring Windows 10 updates. The first one is Windows 10 update rings. We'll have Aria speak to you about this in just a moment and show you how that one works. And right now, I'm going to show you a look at Windows 10 feature updates. Windows 10 feature updates allows you to achieve goals in terms of your Windows 10 deployments that Windows 10 update rings previously wouldn't allow. Update rings are all based around deferrals. And so a deferral is based off the time that Windows and Microsoft publish an update. And that update is then automatically released to your endpoints after the deferral time has elapsed. Well, with a feature update deployment, what happens is that these updates don't flow until you take an action to go and create a policy that assigns a feature update to a device. And then devices will receive that policy and stay there. So it's fundamentally different from a deferral model. And let's see what the deployment policy looks like. So here I give this a name. And then all I need to do is select a feature update. And so I have a drop-down list of all the available feature updates. I'm going to choose version 2004. You always want to get to the latest. And what's important to highlight here is that this is actually, instead of doing what the update rings policies are doing and reaching down to a device and configuring settings on a device, this is actually interfacing directly with the Windows Update service to control the offer layer there. And that removes a bunch of latency from the system and some race conditions that we previously faced. It's a new and innovative design that we're really excited about. And you'll see this design extended beyond just feature updates, which we have right now in preview in the future. So I pick a feature update to deploy. I'm going to assign it to groups. You can just pick a group here. And then as soon as I create this policy, it will get assigned to those devices. And then we'll start rolling out 2004 to devices in our enterprise. And that's how the feature updates policies work. Now, Aria, why don't you show us a look at how Windows 10 update rings work?
Thank you so much, Dune, for going over the feature update deployments with Intune in Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Now we're going to zoom in and take a deep dive into all of the other offering policies and experience policies that you would want to set to manage your cloud updates. To do so, let's go back to our demo environment. To go to the Windows 10 update ring policies, you're going to go back to that sidebar with all of the Windows controls and select Windows 10 update rings. Here, you're going to do the same first step that you did for the Windows 10 feature updates preview. You're going to create a profile. In this case, test case 1. You can add a description as, for example, IT devices, or whatever the devices are that are going to be getting this setting. Next, you're going to go to a page that has all of the update ring settings built in. Now, we're going to walk through these one by one to give you examples of what you should be setting, what the options are that you have to configure, and our recommendation for how to achieve the best experience from both a compliance perspective as well as keeping end users productive and happy. The first of these settings then is the servicing channel. This is really where we allow you to choose either the release channel, which is all of the updates that we've released and officially made available, or a pre-release channel, such as the Windows Insider Fast, Slow, or Release Preview rings. Please note these have since been renamed to the Windows Insider Dev channel, Beta channel, and Release Preview channel. And we have articles that we have linked in resources that can guide you for more of these information. But for now, what you should know is if you're going to be doing testing pre-release for a feature update or a quality update, you should be utilizing, for example, the Windows Insider Release Preview channel. But for all broad deployments to your organization, we recommend using the semi-annual channel. Next, we really recommend that you either choose whether you want your Microsoft product updates to come directly from Windows Update as well, or if you want to manage them separately. If you don't want to receive products like Office directly from Windows Update, you may want to block Microsoft product updates. Additionally, the same is true with drivers. Drivers are something that, especially if you're coming from an on-premise management, are really difficult, where you have to figure out which drivers are applicable to the device and then apply them to such in the right order. Now here, you can get your drivers directly from Windows Update, and Windows Update will apply the correct drivers for the device. Personally, I think this is a huge win and should be something that is allowed. However, if you are a commercial customer who prefers to manage your drivers yourself, you can block drivers similarly to the way you block Microsoft product updates. Now, in terms of the offering policies, as Dune called out, for feature updates, you have the option of using the feature update deployment policy that he walked through earlier, which means that you don't even need to touch this. Just leave it at 0, it will not be in effect. But if you'd prefer to leverage the deferral period for feature updates, you can set a period here such as 0, which means the update will be deployed on day 1 when it's released, or 365, which would be 365 days after it was released or anything in the middle. Similarly, Regardless of whether or not you're managing feature updates with deferrals or with the other feature update deployment policy, where you pick a specific version to move to and stay on, you can set quality update deferral periods. Now, this is really useful to ensure that you have a good quality update deploying to your organization that works across all of your software and hardware. For example, you may want to configure this to 0 if this really is for your IT department. You may want to configure it then to 2 for your early adopters, such that they would receive the quality update 2 days after it's released. It's really important to note that Windows Update for Business customers only receive security or critically marked quality updates. This means typically you're only getting one monthly quality update released on Patch Tuesday, which is the second Tuesday of the month. So if I wanted it to go to all of my organization on the next Tuesday, giving me time to validate, I would set it to 7 days for my broad deployment ring. However, again, since this is configured for my IT department, I'm going to configure it to a 0-day deferral. Now, please see that you have the ability for Intune to specify whether or not you want an uninstall period and how long you want that period to be. The default uninstall period is 10 days. This means you will have 10 days from a new update being deployed onto a device to actually uninstall it remotely. You can extend this to 60 days or make it only 2 days to actually save storage. Personally, I would recommend leaving it at the default unless you have a specific reason for lengthening or shortening the uninstallation period. Now that we've covered some of the basic offering scenarios, let's get into the user experience settings. These settings control everything that the device does once an update is offered to the device. This means, regardless of however or whatever you deploy to the device, these are the settings that are going to control what notifications the end user sees when the device tries to download, install, restart, which is extremely important, as well as what the end user will see in their update settings page. Now, you will note the first policy that you have is automatic update behavior. Automatic update behavior presents a variety of options, the first of which is notify to download. As with any time that you're asking the end user to do something, this can have negative impacts on your update velocity. For example, notify to download only works by saying that it will notify the end user an update is available, and it will not download that update until the end user takes action to download the update, or until a deadline is passed. This will often result in you not actually downloading the update to your devices until the deadline is reached. The next policy that we have available is the automatic install at maintenance time, which is the default for Intune. This policy will make it such that the device will automatically try to install the updates outside of the listed active hours, which here are at the default 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. One recommendation would be to instead reset to the default, given the fact that the default behavior for a new device nowadays is to automatically restart outside of active hours. What's really important to note here is that the difference between resetting to default and the auto install at maintenance time is that if you restart to default, the end user will actually have the ability to set their own active hours, meaning rather than you specifying it for them to 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., the end user can go into the update settings page and specify these periods for themselves, which in today's work from home environment can be critical, especially if people are working odd hours in order to accommodate things such as children or their own personal preferences. If the end user chooses not to specify their own active hours, the intelligent active hours will actually be calculated on the device, and the device will try to predict the best time to download, install, and restart when the end user would be least impaired, meaning that it's trying to find the best time to provide the best experience while achieving compliance. That said, we know that there are certain organizations who have specific requirements and really have trained their end users to be used to scheduling at the same time every time there's an update, and therefore you can auto install and restart at a scheduled time. This policy allows you to specify what week you want it to update, what day you want it to update, and what time. I would highly recommend for those using this policy to do every week and any day. The reason being that if it misses the installation period, for example, your end user decides to ignore the notification or which is more often, at least in my case, you leave the device unplugged overnight. Well, if the device is unplugged, has low battery power, it won't be able to install the update and therefore will fail. And if you're not trying to install every day of every week, instead what will happen is the device will wait a whole week or multiple weeks before it can actually try installing the update again. This can have negative impacts on your update velocity and therefore the security of your environment. In this example, I'm going to reset to default because this is the optimal behavior. You'll hear me say this many times as we continue going through these policies, but typically less is more. We've worked really hard over the last couple releases to build these capabilities such that an IT admin would have to set minimal policies in order to achieve the best update experience, both from a protected perspective as well as a productive perspective for their end users. So in this case, resetting to default provides the best mix of both compliance and end user satisfaction. Let's take a look next at restart checks. This is a big one that feeds into that. Restart checks are basically our way of telling you, hey, the end user is using this right now. They're in display mode right now, like me. And if I'm using display mode, I probably don't want my update to force restart me right now. If you skip restart checks, I might be getting an update right now that would kill this entire presentation. But by allowing restart checks, my device, even if there's an update pending, will not restart while I'm actively presenting. Though, if you have scenarios where you don't want your end user to have that control, or you really want to assure compliance at the fastest rate possible, you can, of course, skip restart checks. Now, we talked a little bit about the settings page earlier with active hours. In addition to end users being able to set active hours through the update settings page, there's also the option to pause Windows updates or to check Windows for updates. If you enable this, you are basically saying that the end user has the ability to pause updates for up to 7 days, and this is pausing both feature and quality updates. If you disable this, the end user will have pause grayed out, meaning that on their device, they will not be able to pause any updates for a period of time. Additionally, end users typically have the option to check for Windows for updates. This means that they will see any updates that were already applicable to their device. Note, this policy doesn't mean that all of a sudden they were offered 2004, even though they had a feature update deferral of 365 days. It means that they would only be offered updates which have already reached the deferral characteristics for that device, and that were already that many days old. So this will only offer things that are already applicable to the device. It will just prompt a scan earlier than it would have. The typical device scans once every 22 to 24 hours, so it's a daily cadence. This just encourages it to potentially do that faster. Please note, if you do disable check for Windows Update, do not, under any circumstances, specify notify to download. The problem is, if you are requiring the end user to take an action, and then you're disabling them from being able to take that action, the end user won't be able to download the update and will be stuck in a bad state. For the best experience, I would recommend enabling both the option to pause Windows updates and the option to check for updates. For best compliance, you may want to consider disabling pause Windows update. This is again an organizational decision where you will have to balance compliance and end user experience. The next policy is another notification policy, where we focus on how notifications are dismissed. Right now, if you don't do anything, many of the notifications and toasts are automatically dismissed after a set period of time. If you require your end user to actually take action, then you may set this to yes. This can actually again slow down compliance, as anytime you require the end user to do something, you might inhibit the update from taking place automatically at a time that would have actually been better for the end user. Therefore, I would recommend configuring this to the default behavior, which is no. Again, as you will note, these are all the default behaviors for these policies. Now, if you choose not to set deadlines, if you are not interested in ensuring compliance is complete, you may want to remind the user with notifications prior to it. The default for these is 4 hours and 15 minutes, meaning that they will receive the update notification 4 hours before the update is going to be pushed to their device, and then again reminded 15 minutes before it's pushed to their device. And this second reminder is permanent. What that means is regardless of your selection here, this will remain on the screen until either the user takes action or the 15 minutes has passed with no user interaction, at which time the update will attempt to restart because the user is clearly not present. These are not relevant if you choose to set a deadline. Instead, we automatically calculate the notifications to show reminders to ensure that the end user has seen the notifications prior to the update being installed and restarted. Therefore, it is recommended that you do not even bother configuring these, as we always recommend for compliance purposes that you specify a deadline. Along with that note, the notification level is recommended to, again, the default behavior. For people using a kiosk scenario where there's no end user actually actively using the device, whether that's a screen at a mall or it's something like an ATM, you may actually want to turn off all notifications because you've scheduled the install at a very specific time and it will restart 15 minutes afterwards, and you don't have any end user there to interact with the notifications regardless. In that case, you may want to turn off all notifications. That said, in a vast majority of your scenarios, and anyone managing desktop devices or devices with end users present, we would recommend using the default Windows Update notifications. Last but not least are the deadline settings. If you are only going to configure 3 policies on the device, I would highly recommend that they be some policy to manage offering, the default for all of the other policies, and then user deadline settings. These are pivotal, ensuring compliance, as well as trying to balance that end user experience to the compliance that they're aiming for. These deadline settings enable you, the admin, to say, okay, our security department or our compliance department says we need to have these updates deployed on the device within 14 days, or whatever period of time it may be. And therefore, you're able to actually specify, okay, I need my updates deployed within a certain number of days. In this case, if I want my feature updates deployed within 7 days, my quality updates deployed within 5 days, I would be able to specify 7 and 5. Now, what's really interesting about these deadline settings, which are relatively new, they were added back in 1903 and then made available through backport to anyone running Windows 10 version 1709 and above, is that they introduce a new concept, a concept of grace period. And this is really interesting because rather than just saying, we're going to force an update on you 7 days after it was offered to the device, it's going to say, okay, if you, Sally, went on vacation for 2 weeks, when you come back, yes, it is well past the deadline for either feature or quality updates, but I'm going to give you 2 days from pending restart to restart. This means you'll receive a variety of notifications asking you to schedule the restart, and you'll see notifications telling you that the restart will happen at a specific time, with multiple notifications leading up to the forced restart, providing a much better user experience than Sally coming back from her lovely vacation and opening up her laptop only to have that update forced right then. So I would highly recommend using these compliance deadline settings. They are some of the best ways to ensure compliance while also ensuring end user satisfaction. Well, it's never great to force a deadline or to force an update on an end user. This is the best way to ensure that the end user has the optimal number of chances to actually schedule the restart for themselves or initiate that restart prior to it being forced, and also allows the update to try and restart outside of active hours when the user is away for multiple days prior to actually forcing it when the user is present. Now note, if you disable auto reboot, this means that the device will not try to automatically update outside of active hours. For anyone who actually likes that experience, which tends to be a majority of what we recommend, you do not want to set this policy. You want to allow the device to try and automatically restart at the time that it's calculated as the best for the end user, when the end user is not present. Now, in certain scenarios, we know that there's no one shoe that fits all. So if you need to actually ensure that the end user is always present for a restart, you would want to configure this to no auto restarts before deadline. Now, those are all of the update ring policies that we have available in Intune today. Once you've completed setting the update ring policies, you will add scope tags, and like you would for the feature update deployment, you're going to assign to a group, whether that's all devices or only a select number of devices. In this case, we're really assigning to our IT department. So you can go to whatever group you want or whatever group you've specified. In this case, let's go to all finance, the same way we did for the feature update deployment group. Then we're going to click next, and we're going to review the settings. So again, you've got your name, your description, your servicing channel, which updates you allow, when you want the updates to be offered, and things such as how you want the device to handle these updates, including when they need to be forced to the device by, thereby ensuring both a good end user experience as well as compliance for the updates that you want to deploy to the device. Now that we've taken a look at how you actually manage your feature update deployments as well as your quality update deployments and the experience you want when the device takes those updates, let's look at how you can monitor those deployments and ensure they're working as expected. Dune, why don't you walk us through the monitoring capabilities now available in Intune?
Thanks, Aria, for taking us through in detail all of the different policies that we have in the Windows Update Rings policies. Now, I wanted to highlight some of the work that we've been doing very recently and show you something that we haven't shown anybody outside of Microsoft yet, which is the new reporting capabilities that we built around the feature update deployment feature. Historically, updates monitoring and reporting in the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center has been a little lacking. And we're aware of this, and we've been doing a lot of hard work to improve this. And the first step that we're taking to improve reporting around software updates is to build out reporting for the new feature update deployment feature that I had showed to you earlier. So if you have a look at the updates blade in Intune and you jump into the Windows Updates category in device management, you won't see that today, but it'll be appearing in the next month or so. You can see a summary of the state of all your devices with respects to the feature update deployment policies that you have configured in your environment. And so I can see at a high level what the breakdown is across all my policies here. And then in the reports, you'll see that I can pick a specific policy and see the details. We only have one report for now, and like I said, that doesn't mean that we're done. It just means that this is where we're starting. We're going to be building out reports for feature updates, quality updates, and more. And we right now have these scoped to the existing policies that you configured, but we hope to expand beyond those policies as well so that we can show you details beyond just scoping to a specific policy. But if I jump into the feature update report, you can see that I have a feature update policy selected here. And then for that policy, I can do filtering, and I can generate a report with the columns that I want, the filters that I want, and see an overall view of the state of devices that have been assigned that policy. In this case, we can see that we have one device. That device is in an offering state, which means that the update is in progress, but has not yet finished installing. Now, if I wanted to have a look at a different update policy, I could pick this, and then I could select a different policy. So it does show data for one specific policy. Like I said, over time, plan to expand that so it's not just scoped to a policy. And that this is really designed to give you a view of what the feature update status is in your environment across all of your policies. Now, this is great for that high-level view, but what if I want to do some troubleshooting and figure out where there might be problems with one of my feature update assignments? Well, for that, I need an operational report. And so we've added an operational report, which you can find under monitoring. So if I go over to the devices node and then monitor, in the software updates area, there's this new report called feature update failures. And if I go here, I can see a list of my policies. And we already had a look at the organizational report for the 2004 deployment. In this case, I want to have a look at the status of devices for the 1903 deployment that I have created. Now, this operational report is really pivoted around identifying what the key errors are in your environment for a specific feature update deployment, and then troubleshooting those errors and helping remediate devices. So in this case, I can see that I have one device assigned, and that device has a specific alert message, in this case, damaged media. And I might not know off the top of my head what damaged media is or what the next step is, and that's okay. If I click on the error type here, I get a more detailed description, I get a severity level for that error, and I get a recommendation in terms of what action I should take to try and remediate that issue. So this is considerably more granular than anything that we've had before in terms of software update reporting in Microsoft Endpoint Manager. So we're really excited to add this. Finally, if I want to go remediate an individual device, and remember in larger environments, there will be a list of devices here. I only have one device here for the demo, but I can click through to the devices node for this specific device. And then I have all the actions that Microsoft Endpoint Manager makes available to me for all devices, accessible right here for that device. If I can use one of these actions at the top here to remediate the device, I can do that. I can also access additional metadata that concerns this particular device, which can help me troubleshoot and figure out a way to address the issue that I have. So in this case, it looks like I'm going to be trying to figure out how to go run that command that was recommended to me in order to unblock this device and complete that feature update to Windows 10 version 1903. And so with that, we've really demoed the latest and greatest in terms of Windows Update reporting in Microsoft Endpoint Manager. And we've showed you as well how to leverage the existing policies in terms of the Windows 10 update rings to achieve a result that you can be happy with in your scenario, in your environment, in terms of managing the Windows 10 devices and their updates in your organization. Hopefully you have some additional insight into what's available using Microsoft Endpoint Manager in the cloud, and we hope that you've been able to see a little bit, a sneak peek into what we're working on and where we're headed with the technology in the future. And so with that, I'd like to point you to some additional resources and sessions that are available as part of Ignite 2020. And there are 3 sessions I'd like to bring your attention to that I think will be worth your time. The first one is on Windows updates and recovery. This is a session by my friend Steve Diacetes. I'm sure it'll be great, focusing on happy IT and happy users. There is a session on optimizing monthly Windows update delivery for remote work and business continuity. That one's particularly important in terms of framing the context of the current work from home environment that we are working in and how to manage updates in that climate. That presentation will be from Snea Deo. The last session I think you should check out is what's changed and what you need to know about on-premise Windows update management. And that's a session that'll be provided by Ritvik, Ashish, and Shailja. I think it'll be really interesting. That one will talk a little bit about security considerations around Windows Server update services and recommended configurations. So check out those 3 sessions. I think they'll be really interesting. We do have a bunch of doc links on here for you to check out. We love our docs. We hope you love our docs too. If you don't love our docs, they're open source and you can help us make them even better. We really love that. And last but not least, we have a few blogs here for you to check out, and we'd encourage you to give those a read. We hope you enjoyed the session, and thank you for listening, and thank you, Aria, for presenting with me on this subject.
Thank you so much, Dune, as always, for being a great co-presenter. And thank you to all of you who took the time to listen in and watch this video. We really hope it helped guide you in what we currently offer for Intune Windows Update Management and what's coming next. And hopefully you guys get a chance to check out some of the other resources we have available beyond even the blogs and docs that we've shared so that you can figure out how to make the best commercial Windows Update Management story that you can for your organization. Thanks again.